We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Saturday. It's 10:30 on the Eastern Seaboard. Today's March 1st. Hope you said rabbit when you woke up today. That's the tradition, right? It means you're going to have a lucky month. Hope you all did that. Grateful to have you here with us today. We got a lot to get to. It's going to be a Saturday grab bag. But before we get to it, make sure that you smash the thumbs up, follow the channel, subscribe, guys, here on rumble.com/amradpod, coming to you Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And if you would please subscribe to one of the audio formats of the podcast, that would be great. Trying to expand there as well. We got to get to some IRS guy who's stealing a whole bunch of your tax returns because he doesn't like Donald Trump because reasons. There's now a call for an economic blackout for one day. I think we survived it because that was yesterday. The TSA is supporting, or at least was supporting, illegal aliens more than Americans. Some revelations about the coronavirus vaccine and an update on what's happening across the pond with encryption. Got a lot. We got to get to that and so much more. It is a grab bag. There's a lot of it. We're going to have to churn and burn through it. And I'm grateful to have Garrett with me, Garrett O'Boyle at GOB Actuals, where you find him. We're going to churn and burn, and I don't have to monologue by myself today. Great to see you, my friend.
Likewise. Good to be here. My pipes, though, Steve. Oh, I haven't talked this much since we testified. Tired.
How tired of you? I mean, like it is a grab bag. This isn't on the rundown. Are you really tired of talking about the Epstein client list that never was, apparently?
Because I'm over it. Yeah, I'm over it. Good to see things happening there in New York, though, and I don't know. It's just, it's a shiny object.
Look, it's a cat with a laser pointer. But I remember we had a dog when I was a kid, and he figured out that the laser pointer was coming from our hand, and then he would just turn around and stare right back at us. So the joke was on us. Let's go through it. I mean, just reaching into the bag. I'm going to pull them out. And I want to start with the IRS. This is a guy who does not like Donald Trump, and he was actually convicted of a crime. But there's been an update on that because there's always an update. It's always worse than you thought. That's like our theme here on the American Radicals Podcast. So this was a contractor, wasn't a W-2 employee. I guess he wouldn't have had to cope with the 5 bullet point emails from Elon Musk if he was still an employee. But he's not, because he pled guilty to leaking President Trump's tax returns. He also disclosed information on 405,427 tax filers.
Wow.
It was originally reported that he got 70,000, but that's about 5 to 6 times as much that he actually got. So the DOJ charged this guy, his name is Charles Edward Littlejohn, with stealing tax return information and giving it to 2 news outlets between 2018, 2020, during the first Trump administration. He got 5 years in federal prison. Now, one of the news organizations he gave it to was ProPublica, far left. They published 50 articles using Littlejohn's leaks and accused Donald Trump of making his business look less profitable to tax officials so he wouldn't have to pay as much taxes. I mean, I remember during the debates where he said, like, nobody knows as much about the tax law as I do, and I know how to beat it. It kind of bode well for him as far as being relatable. Like, hey, the guy's going to do what is in his best interest. But included in the leakage, or the number of tax filers that were there, I don't know if you remember, there were a bunch of billionaires that they tried to embarrass.
So millionaires and billionaires.
Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk. And because ProPublica wants to report on them something salacious to make them look really bad, but also ProPublica is owned and operated by communists who are retarded, they wrote about it, and didn't do so in a very effective way if you have an above room temperature IQ. So this is what they told you about Bezos. So they said between 2014, 2018, he made $4.2 billion. He paid $973 million in taxes. So that's almost a quarter. It's like net 23%. But then ProPublica, because again, they're retards and they're hoping that people who read it are retarded, which they're probably accurate on, said that was less than 1% of his total net worth, which has nothing to do with income taxes, because you can't pay taxes on art that's hanging on the wall or a car that's parked in the garage. Like that's an actual tangible thing. You don't owe taxes on it if it becomes more valuable, because the artwork doesn't just poop out dollar bills for you to send to the government. And so similarly, they also went against Elon Musk, and this is before he was as rich as he is now, but still he wasn't really lacking for let's put it this way: if he wanted to take the old lady out to dinner, he could probably get an appetizer at Applebee's. Elon Musk, he paid $450 million on $1.5 billion of income, so almost 30%. But ProPublica said that that was just 3% of his $13 billion net worth. He's now worth $500 billion.
Wow.
So I was actually, when I saw 13 billion, I was like, damn, that guy used to be kind of poor.
Yeah, compared to what he is now. It's funny that I would imagine if I would have just read that, I probably wouldn't have even been like, wow, he really doesn't pay that much. But yeah, they're comparing apples and oranges here. So I'm over it, Steve. I'm over the lying journalists, and then they put this stuff out like it's gospel, and it's just, can we just move on and just be honest? But I know the answer to that is a hard no. We
Soak
can't.
the rich, man. You got to soak the rich. They got to be paying their fair share. But when you say pay their fair share, you got to do the Joe Biden, your fair share. That's how you
Come
know
on,
that they're
man.
serious. All right. Next one comes from the Federalist. And again, there's more of a resistance now that exists within the federal government. We're seeing it every single day, either through the court system or, I don't know, some people at, what was it, Yellowstone, hanging the flag upside down in protest.
Oh goodness, I didn't
But,
hear that. What?
but this one comes from Federalist, and they're talking about CNN, who broke a big story about members of the intelligence community. They could actually sell state secrets if Donald Trump wasn't nice to them.
Right. This is so. When I first saw this, I was like, "Wait a second, you're gonna admit that?" I mean,
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, actually, I went to, because Donald Trump is a Russian stooge, right? And he's orange and he's mean and he's literally Hitler, and he's also a tool of Vladimir Putin, and he's a Russian asset. And remember all the concerns that he could turn over state secrets. Do you remember the concerns about the classified documents that probably had the nuclear codes in them because they've
uh-huh.
never been updated? That he was going to just turn them over because he was
Yes.
angry about. Well, I guess now that's fine to do that if you're angry at who the president is,
Yeah.
per CNN. So CNN warned that, quote, as the CIA weighs staff cuts, current and former intelligence officials say the mass firings could offer a rich recruitment opportunity for foreign intelligence services like China or Russia, who may seek to exploit financially vulnerable or resentful former employees. I actually agree with this, because the people who work in the intelligence community who get fired because they're pieces of garbage, who are not really patriotic, who just view the job as a job that they're entitled to, and they might not have voted for who the occupant of the Oval Office is, they are actually primed to be targeted and recruited by a foreign actor.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a financial reason, doesn't this go back to that's a suitability issue?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on this? Well, I don't know if you saw something similar to me. The number of people that are in such a precarious situation, and here I am asking the man who's been suspended for 29 months without pay, about being financially independent. But in your experience in dealing with government workers, how many of them are on the edge, and could that potentially be problematic?
Oh, 100%. It could be problematic. I wanted to pull this up. I think it's guideline F. So we've talked about it here before, but a brief recap for those who maybe are unaware or forgot. In the intelligence community, whichever piece of it you belong to, you got to have a clearance. In the FBI, for instance, everybody has to have a clearance. That's how they fleeced guys like us, is they suspend your clearance. One of those 13 adjudicative guidelines, I couldn't find it, but I'm pretty sure it's guideline F, is financial considerations. Every year in the FBI, you got to do what they call that thing, a financial basic
Disclosure.
financial disclosure. There it is. And you put in the amount of money that's in your bank account and all sorts of stuff. And then you submit it, and I don't know who looks at it, but it's supposed to see if you made some type of extra, outlandish. Some they use it to try and find somebody like a Robert Hansen, for instance, who's getting paid by some foreign actor. But let's rewind a little. So when I was a brand new agent, I had, what do we have? 2 kids at the time. I show up in Wichita right into a government shutdown. And people are losing their ever loving minds. And I'm like, I'm good. My boss was like, I'm so sorry that this is happening. I know, especially at your pay rate, you don't get paid great. And I'm thinking, I get paid fine. I get paid just fine. At that time, I think I was making pretty much what I had been making as a police officer. And so we lost some income because my wife stopped working when we moved, and she had been working um, at least half time prior to that, and she made good money. She's a dental hygienist by trade, but now we're in Kansas, and we got kids, and I'm working during the day. We got no support, and my boss is like, "Do you need money? I will lend you my personal money until we get this sorted out." And I'm like, "No, I'm straight. I'm good," because we prepared. But then you learn that most people don't. They're living paycheck to paycheck, which is insane to me because everybody in the FBI gets paid good. They get paid a good wage. And people are worried about buying groceries because we missed a paycheck or two. But hey, you get suspended, Steve, because you can't retain, or well, you do retain state secrets, but we have found you no longer eligible to do so. If they actually cared about the financial considerations, most of the government or most of the intelligence community could be fired or have their clearance suspended on that alone.
And look, people are people. It doesn't matter if you have an FBI credential or you're just working over at the office space Dell Computers facility, right? People tend to, hey, I got a $1 an hour raise and I'm going to spend $2 more. And it's just the natural inclination, which is why your boss was kind of like, could not fathom that you as a GS10 step one, how you could possibly survive when she was a GS14. I mean, she just didn't remember being a GS10 and having lived on that sort of an income level. And thinking about guys that were in my office, similar experience and freaking out over some sort of government shutdown. I'm actually even thinking about another agent who I knew, and you talk about compromising themselves, putting themselves in a bad position. Bought multiple cars, Dodge Chargers, on payments. He didn't buy them; he financed them.
Yeah.
And his idea was that there was some sort of app where you could rent these vehicles and people would basically on vacation, instead of going to Hertz
Yeah.
or Enterprise, they would go one-on-one with you
Yeah.
and
Like the
rent your vehicle.
Airbnb of chargers.
Yes. And he came in one day, scratching his head, and he says, I think they're running drugs with my Charger. Like, well, that's great for an FBI agent to be roped into
Yes.
some sort of narcotics conspiracy, but I didn't know. I didn't know. But he said, "Well, it makes sense for me financially because I like the Chargers, and the payments are being paid for by these people when I'm not using it. But here you are, like it only works if it works. Like, what if that dope dealer gets arrested? Now who's going to be renting your Charger? And now you have multiple car payments, and maybe China comes a knocking saying, like, hey, it's not a big deal. Just give us a couple of documents. You'll never notice it."
Hmm.
That's how it starts, right? And once you cave, that was always the thing as a cop. Once you take that payoff, they own you. Your
Yep.
credibility is gone. You cannot bend on that. And I always wonder how many FBI agents actually do that to a certain extent.
I do wonder too, the true story of Serpico. I saw this movie when I was, I don't know, probably like 15 or something, and it was one of those ones that always resonated. I at that time I hadn't even considered becoming a cop or anything, but and then I learned as I got older and learned more about his story. He just didn't want to participate in the corruption, but everybody around him was corrupt. I mean, it's hard to fathom, but that type of thing still happens. I just saw recently an entire police department. It was small. It's a small town in Alabama. I think Alabama or Arkansas, I think. But the whole thing got disbanded because every single person was corrupt.
It's Gotham City, man. It's Batman Begins. Jim Gordon, you better not be a rat. In this town, there's nobody to rat to. All right. Let's go to another one here. And I teased this in the beginning, the economic blackout. I mean, did you survive? Did the economy survive yesterday?
I made it. I made it.
This is massive. Reporting from USA Today. consumers preparing for a 24-hour economic blackout.
Oh
Friday,
no.
February
Dun, dun,
28th. One of several boycotts planned by groups of consumers or activists to protest what they call corporate greed.
Oh, sure. Good luck.
Companies have rolled back, and mostly because the companies have rolled back their DEI. So they're doing the inverse Bud Light. They're saying, all right, we're going to boycott you because you're not putting DEI. You're not putting Dylan Mulvaney's face on the can anymore. So for one day, we're not going to buy, and we will bring you to your knees so that you will find as many Aleutian Islander, quadriplegic, transsexuals to put on the front of your cereal box.
It's so dumb, Steve. This is so dumb. This is one of the dumbest things I've seen in at least the last 29 months
Because
because
communists don't understand the economy.
no. And okay, how many of you are there for one, with your stupid group? How you're not going to make an impact to anybody, and you're going to go back to Aldi or wherever you get your communist whatever. Not that Aldi's communist.
Whole Foods.
I love Aldi, but yes, Whole Foods. You're going to go back to Whole Foods tomorrow and say, "Damn it, this is why I don't go to Whole Foods on a Saturday. It's too busy. I should have went yesterday."
Oh, I didn't even think of that, Garrett. Yes, Friday is way more preferable to your shopping. I do my shopping on Fridays as well because you don't want to catch that Walmart crowd. I mean, there's not as much yellow tag beef.
Yes, the yellow tag beef, which is still steadily climbing in its own regard. Come on, make
Pretty
beef
soon, the
prices
yellow
low again.
tag beef will be cheaper than the eggs from the
Yeah,
trajectory
that's
that
true.
we're on right now. All
That's
right.
true.
Oh,
We've been spending a little extra on the eggs, Steve. I'll admit it. Maybe it's not wise. Maybe it's not a good financial consideration, but we love our eggs around here, so we haven't caved yet.
well, one man who does not shop for yellow tag beef, and I alluded to him because he only was worth $13 billion a few years ago, but now just a few shekels more than that, is Elon Musk. And this one I did find interesting, and I got a far left news source to talk about it.
I
Okay,
love
so we're going
it.
to
The
have
best.
to. I read it, so you don't have to. I pulled a couple excerpts from Gizmodo about Elon Musk saying that he's going to fix community notes. And the title is Elon Musk says he'll fix community notes on X after it disagreed with him. Actually, what his contention is that the community notes are being gamed by governments and by media sources to try to, I don't know, fact check, but we know the fact checkers aren't really accurate. They're kind of just putting forward their agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So the quote that came from Elon Musk himself was, quote, unfortunately, community notes is increasingly being gamed by governments and legacy media working to fix this, Musk tweeted last week. Now, Gizmodo says, why is Musk upset? It looks like the billionaire doesn't like notes that have appeared under his tweets. It's not called tweets, Gizmodo. They're called posts. Stop dead naming the man's social media platform. His posts were about Ukraine in recent days, which are fact-checking several lies being spread by the U.S. government. Quote, it should be utterly obvious that the Zelenskyy-controlled poll about his own approval is not credible. If Zelenskyy was actually loved by the people of Ukraine, he would hold an election. That's what Musk said. I don't know why that needs community notes, but there were some that were put underneath it saying that that the polling was not accurate, right? Quote, he knows he would lose in a landslide despite having seized control of all Ukrainian media, so he canceled the election, Musk continued. In reality, he is despised by the people of Ukraine, which is why he has refused to hold an election. I challenge Zelenskyy to hold an election and refute this. He will not.
Yeah.
That sounds like expression of mostly opinion. I mean, I don't know why that would need community notes.
No.
Other than legacy media really wants to continue sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. And they don't like Elon Musk because he hangs out with guys who are orange and mean and literally Hitler. But Gizmodo is perfect because I have a video actually too as a palate cleanse for having read this to you, AmRads.
I really like how they include in there, Steve, that it's the U.S. government that is now lying when over the last 4 years, it was never the government that was lying. It was always the people who were lying and getting fact checked. And now the fact checkers are now saying, oh, no, not now. It's the government that's lying, of course.
Oh, I mean, like, look, we're dealing with people who are similar. And I even was thinking through this. It's not related to the media, but it's government workers, right? Government workers who were objecting to sending an email with 5 bullet points. So, a couple of years ago, You all said, jam that gene juice into my arm gleefully, and I'm going to be so ecstatic to harass my fellow coworkers, and I'm going to be ecstatic that this is a prerequisite for me to have my job.
Yep.
But a 5 bullet point email, that's a step too far.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold the line here. But Gizmodo said, in defense of Ukraine, this is what Gizmodo says. The reason Ukraine hasn't held any election since the start of the war is that hundreds of thousands of people are fighting and dying, a fact that some MAGA conservatives don't think is sufficient. Hey, were there hundreds of thousands of people fighting and dying during the U.S. Civil War? When everybody fighting it was an American? Or I
Yeah.
mean, maybe during, I don't know, World War I or its sequel.
Yes. Yes. And countries still had elections. This is perhaps my favorite piece of the whole Ukraine drama that gets buried or forgotten about. People, even here still, there are people who still have their blue and yellow flag in their bio or whatever, and they're far more pro Ukraine than even America, but they won't go and fight there. And they say it's for freedom. It's for democracy.
Democracy just without elections.
Yeah. And Putin is the one who's the dictator and the tyrant, and Donald Trump is on the take from Vladimir Putin, and Putin's trying to take over and recreate the Soviet Union. Okay, even if there is some semblance of truth to that, you're barely scratching the surface, even on the historical perspective of Ukraine, or what we now know as Ukraine and Russia. It's actually kind of an interesting rabbit hole to go down, but I'll bite my tongue on that for now. But the guy is actually a dictator. Vladimir Zelenskyy is. He canceled the freaking elections.
You communists, please stop making me like quasi defend Vladimir Putin. He's not a good guy.
Right.
But when you prop up the other guy who's is also bad in his own right, like that's stupid. You're stupid.
I got this book back here. I think it's called A Man Without a Face. I'm pretty sure that maybe it's Moby Dick, but it's about Vladimir Putin and it's old now. It's got to be at least a decade old, maybe even more than that. Super interesting to see how he kind of rose to power. Not a good guy, no doubt, but neither is Vladimir Zelenskyy. Don't stop trying to fool us.
Vladimir Putin walks with one arm still because it's on his gun side. He's so used to being armed. It's once you see it, you can't unsee it. So the palate cleanse. There was fireworks yesterday at the White House because Big Z decided to roll into the Oval Office and tell our president and vice president just how things are handled because he's used to dealing with pudding for brains.
Did you see the clip of when he showed up and Trump said like, "Oh, you got all dressed up today," or something like that?
Well,
Hilarious.
That's what our mid-episode palate cleanse actually is.
I thought you were gonna bring the one where him and JD Vance were basically yelling at him.
No, this is from the media. This is actually some good shattered. This is shattered showers of journalism here.
Second question. My second question for President Zelenskyy. Why don't you wear a suit? Why don't you wear a suit? You're at the highest level in this country's office, and you refuse to wear a suit. Just want to see if do you own a suit?
Yeah, problems.
A lot of Americans have problems with you not
Really?
respecting.
I don't
the
have
dignity of
such.
this office.
I will wear a costume after this war will finish.
Okay.
Yes,
You're wearing a costume now.
Well,
Maybe something
maybe
like this.
something like
Yes,
yours,
sir.
yes.
That'd be great.
Maybe something better. I don't know. We will see. Maybe something cheaper than yeah. Thank you. Thank you for.
That's awesome.
Marco Rubio sitting there so uncomfortable because he didn't unbutton his button on his jacket. Marco, you got to do better than that.
Come on, little Marco. He's got the little hands, little Marco.
The costume. I'll put a costume on after the war, unlike the costume that you have on right now.
The costume you're wearing now.
And it will definitely, unquestionably, be better than the suit of the gentleman who asked that question, since Vladimir Zelenskyy has laundered billions of dollars to himself at this point.
Yeah, what was his wife buying in Paris a year ago or whenever that was? There was, it's just
She was buying Crocs or flip flops or a Bugatti. I don't know. One of
yeah.
them. All right, I want to plug Brianna Morello, which is our story to
friend of the show
from the TSA. She did a nice little thing in her Substack about how the TSA was favoring illegal aliens. So exclusive. She always says exclusive.
It gets her
TSA
clicks.
under Biden focused on speeding up checkpoints for illegal aliens without IDs, not national security. And thank you, Brianna Morella, for using the term illegal aliens.
Yes.
Good on you. So the breakdown here was this started very early. I mean, we're March 1st now. So this was March of 2021. I mean, barely a month and a half into the Biden administration. His TSA issued a revised operations directive to address a significant increase in the number of non-US citizens at certain airports who do not have acceptable ID documents. So people were rolling into the airport and didn't have ID. We got a problem here. I wonder why there was a dramatic increase. So this operations directive added a series of Homeland Security provided documents that were suddenly acceptable for illegal aliens traveling without an ID. So as a substitute, here is the list of things that they were allowed to use that got them fast-tracked past you as you were having to take your shoes off and be screened, okay? A warrant for arrest, a warrant for deportation, order of removal, order of supervision, a notice to appear in an immigration court, arrival and departure forms, and a alien booking record if you already got arrested and clearly you were free at this point. All of those suffice. Meanwhile, everybody's scrambling to get the universal ID right now. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to fly because you're an American. And under the Biden administration, at least, legal aliens were a preferred class of individuals. I mean, they wouldn't have to wear a suit to the Oval Office. They could just wear olive green drab.
The thing I hate the most about this is if you had any of those things that you just listed off, where the F were the government employees coming out, the TSA employees coming out in droves saying, look at how unbelievable this is. They have arrest warrants and we're getting them fast tracked through the line.
Yeah, 4 years later, and this is Brianna doing some actual journalism and digging this up. Imagine she has a source or two who brought this, but you're right. This was not brought out, and there was 4 years to do it. And you knew you were putting illegal aliens onto planes, people who you could not really even verify. And then, I mean, just as a matter of principle, like, hey, this sucks. I hate doing it, but I just got to do my job. And these illegal
Yeah.
aliens, for whatever I oppose it. The president and Homeland Security is not getting rid of them. I have to process them, but I'm going to process them faster than Americans. I'm going to make the Americans sit and wait.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think of this loser retired supervisory special agent. I don't remember his name. Honestly, it doesn't matter. But on Twitter, he said something to me on X. Sorry, Elon, please don't shadow ban me again. I'm just breaking through. But he said something to me like, "Oh, you call all the people subversive Marxists." Okay, well,
Yes.
that's what this is. That's what this is. So if you just toe the line and say, yeah, okay, they got an arrest warrant. I don't care. I'm going to fast track. They're actually going to get a benefit over regular citizens because they have a flippin' arrest warrant. That is subversive Marxism.
Garrett, did you ever, in the course of your law enforcement career, encounter someone with an active warrant and say, I'm just not going to arrest you on this
Dude,
one today? Because
Unfathomable.
it says shall arrest, right?
Shall. And we've talked about this before too, I'm sure. When it comes to law enforcement officers have a great deal of discretion. They can implement that discretion. They have been placed in a position of trust. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of examples of law enforcement officers who fail, who should not have that position of trust. Nonetheless, when you use your discretion, I have discretion if I'm going to arrest you for that dime bag of weed or not. And is it worth it? Are you trying to hide it? Okay, you're going to get arrested. Whatever the case may be. But when it comes to a warrant, this is where your discretion goes away because it says shall arrest, not may, not can, not use your best judgment. Shall.
You maybe can object to using a SWAT team on somebody who's not violent. I mean, I
Who said they're going to cooperate?
with that. And now I'm just being reminded of how the lengths you have to go to. I mean, I remember as a police officer getting a dispatch call that said someone with an active warrant was at the hospital. They were at delivery. And I at first thought, well, like delivering medical supplies or food to the cafeteria. What is it? No, they're at deliveries of the babies. And it turned out that old boy, his current girlfriend, was very unhappy that he had gone to the birth of his child with his ex-girlfriend because he wanted to be a supportive father.
Woman
So I
scorn.
showed up and I told my sergeant, "You serious? Are you
Yeah.
serious?" He said, "Yeah, you got to go. You got to go." And I go to him, and the guy himself was like, "Yeah, this is hanging over my head, and obviously it was going to happen at the worst time, and it's not on you, it's on me. It's a good thing that I have this stack of money here for my bond money that I can handle this." And I was like, "Oh, great!" Hightailed him down to the
Yes.
jail,
Get you booked, get you released.
back in time to see the birth.
Oh, that's one where I would be like, just get back in. I'll take you back myself.
So I guess all is well that ends well, except for I would have to question whether or not he's still with the new
Oh,
girlfriend.
doubt it. He probably has at least one more baby mama since then.
All right, let's talk, because what does it always go back to, Garrett?
COVID.
And the gene juice that saved millions of lives and definitely didn't end in permanent injury that we called long COVID.
Or did it?
Well, Catholic Vote is clearly indicating that it did, or at least they're
Oh.
reporting on a study from Yale. I mean, that's a podunk JUCO, but they linked the COVID shots to long-term effects, where those long-term effects may be resistant to the virus. So according to the study, post-vaccine syndrome, PVS, patients exhibit biological changes years after receiving the shot, including immune system abnormalities and the persistent presence of spike protein in their blood. The patients showed clear signs of immune system dysregulation with a drop in the infection-fighting cells. Basically, it gives you AIDS. Like that's essentially what it is. And it causes inflammation. They report exercise intolerance, excessive fatigue, brain fog, insomnia, dizziness. Typically emerges within 2 days of the vaccination and may persist for months or even years. But basically, it's created an autoimmune disorder in people from getting the shot.
Dude, man, I know they put a tremendous compliance campaign on people. I mean, we talk about it all the time. This is a direct result. I will never be convinced otherwise, Steve. A direct result of COVID and the forced injections is us being suspended. Sure, come up with whatever reason you want. Downloading the employee manual that everybody has access to, insubordination for following your boss's order to not come in, actually meaning your oath and not participating in an arrest that you saw as undue force. My instance, allegedly leaking to the media. We all know all of this is a bunch of BS. Everybody who listens to this show knows that by now. It all started with COVID. It was a compliance purge. Everybody we know, Kyle, Marcus, when Steve and I testified, when we got done, we go in the back room. I still regret not getting that salad. They had lunch for us. But I asked Marcus right away. I was like, hey, did you get the COVID shot? And he was like, heck no. And it sealed the deal for me then, because he was like number 10 or 12 on our list of people who got similarly walked out. Every single one was a non-compliant vaccine denier, if you want to call it that. But look, it's more vindication. And these coercive measures, they're going to continue, maybe in a different way. We now know they're jabbing our livestock with mRNA stuff, and we're getting that meat. You got to just hold the line, really. You have to. We have to resist this evilness. I mean, this is evil.
And where too many did not hold the line was on the unborn, which is the second coronavirus vaccine article I have from the High Wire, Tracy Beans over there. mRNA experiment on pregnant mothers.
Yikes.
And just so you know, the mRNA vaccine processes and protocols are going to be used for bird flu. They're going to inject it into our animals. I mean, what are the long-term effects? I mean, I'm sure it can't be transmitted, or can it? And if it gets transmitted, only the good stuff, of course, is what they told us, which was patently ridiculous. So right off the bat, pregnant women were warned that the COVID-19 infection could alter the mother's critical immune system. So basically, they scared these pregnant women and said, if you don't get the shot, the baby, you get COVID, the baby could be negatively impacted. I mean, you've had 4, I've had 2. The ladies in our lives tend to be pretty vulnerable psychologically when you say that to them.
Mhm.
That is, I mean, abusive what they did. So it was going to make her more susceptible to dangerous respiratory pathogens and potentially damage her and the fetus if she got COVID. So what she should definitely do is get the jab. Following the rollout of the experimental mRNA jabs, pregnant mothers were again notified the shots were safe so they could, quote, get the vaccine. They were assured that the placenta is like a black box on an airplane and told that there was a solid barrier that would allow no harm to enter the sacred space. But a couple of recent studies just published a couple weeks ago in February 16th, in molecular therapy, found that within 30 minutes of maternal vaccination, the lipid nanoparticles, which were a component of mRNA vaccines, swiftly moved into the maternal bloodstream and efficiently crossed the placenta to spread to the fetal circulation within a half hour.
Dude, I mean,
And on top of that, they didn't test the vaccines on pregnant mothers. I mean, that's protocol, right?
Yeah.
And then they said, but you got to get it completely untested.
Dude, it's so bad. It's so evil. It's so much worse probably than anybody even knew. I remember though back then, or shortly after the rollout of the jabs, all of these stories coming out about miscarriages and I even know some people who they were curious. They're like, yeah, I had to get it because of my job, and then they had a miscarriage, and it's like, is this connected? Is it not? Well, now as we learn more data, I mean, it's a smoking gun, and I mean, this is death. This is death.
And they found it in breast milk, like just gross. And it was one of the worst psyops ever run. I mean, they softened the people, their mushy minds for 8-9 months during 2020, during the lockdowns, about this being Captain Trips and we're all going to die. And then they pushed out this experimental vaccine and Operation Warp Speed. We're going to save the world. And people just flocked to it. They just wanted to hit eject from the madness that they were seeing over the last year. And then they put these additional stressors on people and they found where they were vulnerable. There's nothing more vulnerable than a mom who is pregnant with a baby and does not want to do anything that would jeopardize the health and well-being of the child. I mean, they won't eat deli meat or drink coffee. And I mean, I don't know if about you, but that's not fun for me when dealing with my wife without coffee in the morning.
Right. Absolutely. And it's, man, it really, it's just so bad. There's so much swirling in my head right now about this because on one hand, you've got people who just complied. You got people pushing, you have people who in the quote unquote pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry who bought the lie or were peddling the lie because of some type of kickback. There's information about that out there. How doctors or doctors' offices get paid if they push this stuff, and then you got the Albert Bourla types, the CEO of Pfizer, making money hand over fist. And then, for instance, the documents that are supposed to come with the quote unquote medicine, they're blank. They don't include what they're supposed to include because they don't have the data, or if they did, they hid it. And even still, it's still technically under emergency use authorization only, which by law, then no one can make you take that. So it's just, man, there's just so many levels of evil here.
I'm just even thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, I was kind of stupid. I mean, how many times did you go into a doctor's office? I mean, you're asthmatic like me. And they would say, hey, I want to prescribe this for you for, whatever you're going through right now. Let me save you a little money. I got some samples. I'll give it to you. The rep just walked into their office and dropped them samples. That's why they were suggesting it for you.
Right. I know. I mean, I've been duped into it too.
The only hack around that was baby formula. Fun fact, my parents out there, pediatrician, ask for samples. They have it. Save yourself some money. All right. Let's talk honey pots in the FBI, which we've talked about for a while since this report came out. but now it has reemerged. And I love when we do media and we find out that it's a bombshell, new revelations. And I say, yeah, it's October of last year. But more reporting from Carrie Pickett at Washington Times. The FBI looking into James Comey's off-the-books honeypot operation targeting the 2016 Trump campaign. I think the new bombshell is that the FBI is looking at it, what he did at that point. This is from a new whistleblower. Quote, the case had no predicated foundation, so Comey personally directed the investigation without creating an official case file or any other FBI system other than Sentinel, which is where they do the case reports. The FBI has multiple methods of protecting highly sensitive investigations, so Comey did not have a legitimate reason not to officially create an official investigation or even a file number. The whistleblower said the undercover operation was obscured from the DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz,
Look at that.
boy, who investigated the misconduct in the Bureau's probe into the Trump campaign. I want to reset, like, actually what went on, so for anybody who is eluded their attention of what the allegation was that James Comey did, and then what it would require to actually open up a criminal case. So did he violate the law?
I would say yes, but so what he did was 2 undercover employees were placed into the Trump administration by Jim Comey to try to drum up crime, to try to trap them into some type of criminal enterprise. And as the director of the FBI, he directed that this happen. And then he hid it. You know, this past week, this story about these separate servers that the FBI has, it's probably this type of thing that's included on there, because if the IG didn't have access to this information, there were no properly documented serials or case number or case file. It's probably this type of thing that they're keeping separate like that because it's illegal. All of these people should be in a freaking orange jumpsuit.
Do you think if Michael Horowitz had known that he would have written a strongly worded letter or maybe I don't know, a full-on report like 24 months later that said that it's probably in bad practice and they should probably have policies that say directly that the FBI director should not order illegal spying operations into presidential campaigns or on anyone? Like, honeypotting is what intel people do. Like, honeypotting is what spies overseas do to agents of foreign governments to try to get secrets.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do honeypots in law enforcement because that's called entrapment. You can't send in the hot young lady to peddle the wares because dudes make really bad decisions that they were not predisposed to do or even capable of doing. Be like, send in the stripper and be like, hey, you want to buy an illegal gun? Like, he's 18 and he's not thinking with the right head. He's thinking with the one that's 3 feet below that. He's going to make bad decisions. That's not what the government's supposed to do. That's entrapment. It's also based on a presumption of guilt, right? The presumption that James Comey had was that people in Donald Trump's campaign were guilty of something. We just have to find out what it is. So we have to exert whatever force we need to. We're going to install these 2 female agents. And as the father of daughters, Garrett, if you learned that your daughter, who was a girl boss and had climbed to the ranks of the FBI, the most premier law enforcement agency in the country, if not the world, they tell you that, so we'll just take it at face value. And the guy at the top directed her to go and make herself look sexually available, if not actually engage in sexual activity, so that he could make a case. Would James Comey be alive to stand trial?
No. I mean, you would think this is something out of some type of spy novel, but the director of the FBI was doing this. This is antithetical to everything you learn in a constitutional republic regarding what the role of law enforcement is in that republic. It's show me the man and I'll show you the crime. That's 100% what this is. And the director of the FBI, this is Hoover. This is Hoover level stuff.
Oh, Hoover's not nearly this bad, man. I tell you what, I looked at Grok last night about J. Edgar Hoover, and I said, what were J. Edgar Hoover's standards for FBI agents? And I read through it, and I was like, that's my FBI.
Yes. Clean shaven, wearing a suit, working out.
checking body fat with the calipers. That was my man. But that is, like you're saying, it's not what law enforcement is about. That's what bad spy novels and bad spy movies are about. And the presumption of guilt is the photo negative of what we're supposed to have in this country, but they don't necessarily think that it applies if they don't like the subject or the one who they want to make their subject, because he's orange and he's mean and he's literally
Hitler.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Apple. I got two of them. Let's talk about Apple. One's good, one's bad. Where do you want to go first?
Bad.
All right. Well, bad is going to be the update, right? So the update was, and it was multiple sources. Remember a couple episodes back, we talked about the UK. They passed this Snoopers Choice or Snoopers Charter, I think was what it's called, where basically it compels private industry to cooperate with the government in intelligence collection, information collection. And because Apple has the ability to have encrypted communications from messaging and from cloud storage, that they were going to still have to give it up. So we left it there saying, hey, Apple's going to have to hold the line on this one. They're going to have to fight with it because this presents the potential for maybe the American law enforcement intelligence collection apparatus to send their guys overseas like they did to Donald Trump, as the Durham report revealed, and then just, tap their counterpart over in London and say, hey, why don't you just look at what Garrett Boyle has for the UK's interest and you can share it with me. I don't have a warrant, right? That was the potential that we foresaw. And as it was predicted at the time, this is exactly what Apple did. They basically said, we're no longer going to even offer the encryption. It's just open. So now they've left their customers not secure or far less secure, and they're going to comply with the UK and hand over whatever they want.
Yeah, talking about bad spy novels. Now we're moving into 1984 George Orwell territory, because that's what this is. This is the intelligence agencies of the world. Just because we said so, we got a law now. We made it a law. We're not supposed to abide by evil laws. Those laws should never exist. And now Apple, with their massive amount of money that they have behind them, and I'm sure strong legal teams all over the world, just folded, just said, not worth the fight. We'll just give you the access because you said it's the law.
At least they're going to hire some people, Garrett.
That's good.
That's
I need a job.
$500 billion investment in America. They're going to spend and invest. They're going to hire 20,000 new workers in research and development roles over the next 4 years. So $500 billion in 4 years. It's not like a 50-year plan.
R&D.
Apple's commitment is to include the company's work with thousands of suppliers across all 50 states. So, America only, America first. The move comes after CEO Cook met with Donald Trump. Many of Apple's products assembled in China could face a 10% tariff. So they're going to bring them back to America to reduce costs here, I guess, but or not reduce costs, generate jobs. It's certainly not going to reduce costs.
No.
But the pledge of $500 billion to invest in America. And I'm reminded of this tariff war that's been going on. I don't know if you see this. You're closer to the northern border than I am in Florida, but I even saw the commercials from Ontario.
I haven't seen
them yet. Come to Ontario because we're the number one provider of goods to 17 of your states. And basically, like underneath it, I was thinking of the pharmaceutical company where the guy has a really fast voice, like, please don't tear it up. Please don't tear it up. Please don't tear up us. So that was good. And as is $5 million, a gold card. Do you know any foreigners here, which is coming from Zero Hedge? I know you have your thoughts on it, Garrett.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw it up there. One, because I just want to recognize that Zero Hedge's pop-ups are only what Zero Hedge wants to advertise, nothing else.
JM Bullion, get your bullion.
So Donald Trump announces a $5 million gold card to world-class foreigners to pay down our deficit. Naturally, we're going to pay the deficit. This time we're going to do it. We're
going to get a surplus, Steve.
That's what, if they attract $1 million people, that would be, I don't do the math on that one. $50 trillion. Yeah. All right.
But this is, Donald Trump, obviously smart guy. He's not going to get where he is if he's listening to GOB actual over here, but I just don't get this. This is dumb to me. What am I missing? Because if you've got that kind of money, why would you come here? One of the most expensive places in the world. Wouldn't you just like buy your own island or move to the Philippines or Chile or somewhere that's cheaper where your money's going to go a lot further and you're going to live like a king or queen?
I think that it's an appeal on the messaging front to people because it sounds like, oh, well, look, we're going to get people here that are low speed, high drag, rich people. They're going to pay taxes. They're going to create jobs. But that's just called like a vetting system, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you would just vet people through immigration if you're going to have lawful immigration, and they're going to spend that money anyway.
Yeah.
But people hear, oh, they're going to pay $5 million just to come through the door.
I don't.
And then it sounds, I just ran the numbers real quickly. If you wanted to pay down our national debt entirely, you would need to bring in 7.2 million people. 7.2 million people drop in $5 million each. That would be a fifth of what Joe Biden allowed in the country. So, I mean,
They're all mostly poor though. But
no, darn it.
Maybe some of those high-ranking MS-13 members could afford this gold card.
These Trend Aragua guys are just like diving into Scrooge McDuck vaults of cash.
The math doesn't check out on this to me. Where's the 7.2 million multi-million or billionaires who are going to do this? I don't think they exist.
You harshed my mellow, Garrett. I was feeling good about $7.2 million millionaires coming in. All right, but I got two good ones to close us out. They're both Donald Trump, mean orange, literally Hitler stories that I think are worth covering out here on the American Radicals podcast. All right, first one is how he's handling the press pool.
I love it.
So the White House took control of the press pool, which I didn't realize how it was quote unquote independent before.
Yeah, right.
This was new and revelatory information to me. So Caroline Leavitt, who's the press secretary?
Caroline. It's Caroline, Brian. I should send you this clip. We might have to play it as a palate cleanse.
She's better than Jen Psaki and Karine Jean-Pierre, so I can call her whatever she wants. All right. President Donald Trump's spokeswoman said that while traditional media organizations would still be allowed to cover the president, the administration plans to change who participates. Quote, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, that's this organization, White House Correspondents Association, have dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore, Leavitt said. And the response from the WHCA, the White House Correspondents Association, is this move tears at the independence of a free press, independence that we got to decide, right? Yeah. In the United States. Yeah. It suggests the government will choose the journalists who cover the president as opposed to us. So in a free country, leaders must not be able to choose their own press corps. It should be us.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Clean the place out, send in multiple hatchet men and go to town, because this is part of the mandate we voted for. It's at every level. So I like seeing this type of thing.
It's not even a First Amendment issue. I mean, This isn't the White House saying you cannot report on us.
Yeah.
This is them saying, look, time is finite. Well, we can't answer every single question from every single person. And very much like the last administration or the one before that, we're going to pick ones that we want to ask questions to us. I mean, the last one not only picked them, they photographed them and handed the questions ahead of time.
Yeah,
so
that's
times
right.
are different.
That's right. Yep. I love it, man.
All right. The second one I got, and maybe this will be more impactful to the media because they're not going to be having I don't know, was it Al Jazeera come in and report, because Trump is signing an executive order to make English the official language of America.
Oh, all right. We're going to speak American again.
The order, first reported by the Wall Street Journal yesterday, confirmed by White House official who was not authorized to speak publicly. Gosh, they got to do something about those leaks. At least the leak came out in English. It marks the first time the U.S. will have an official language, which, man, like, this is one of these things that it's like voter ID. Like, everybody agrees with this. It rescinds a mandate from former President Bill Clinton left in place by each subsequent administration, including Trump the first time, that required agencies and other entities with federal funding provide language assistance to non-English speakers. So they were basically, it was a government jobs program.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hire translators to accommodate people who don't speak English. Well, now we have English as the official language. I will find it interesting when some district judge in California, they get a lawsuit and the judge puts a stay on it and he writes it in Spanish.
Yes. Good point, because we're going to see it. We're going to see the subversion continue. But again, this is what we voted for. English was already the language. It shouldn't even take this, but I'm here for it. Let's speak more American. I accept.
Do you think there could be a problem down in New Orleans where they speak like Creole?
Yeah, yeah. I think of the guy in Waterboy, the Adam Sandler movie.
He's as American as you and me. All right. I have a great palate cleanse today. I'm really looking forward to it because it sort of describes where you live in the world. And if anybody notices, like 2 out of the 3 palate cleanses are inspired by me mocking the fact that Garrett lives in the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. But I want you close us out with your thoughts today, Garrett.
Yeah, I got a lot of encouragement out of this yesterday, so I'm glad to bring it here today. I hope it brings some encouragement to you as well. Psalm 142. It's only 7 verses. It says, "With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before Him. I tell my trouble before Him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, for you will deal bountifully with me." And the encouragement for me there was that I must have forgotten this week, Steve. Shame on me. I'm a fallible man. But I forgot that it's not man who is going to save you or me. It's not man who I need to turn to and cry out to and plead to. It's the Lord. We have the Lord. And it just brought me tremendous peace and joy. So, yeah, that's all.
All right. And I want to bring this up because, I think I've been kind of cash money. I think that it's been pretty much universal in a vote of 2 here, that whatever the algorithm is feeding me for our palate cleanses has been pretty spot on recently. And then I found this one and I watched it and I laughed. And then I made my wife watch it with me and we both laughed. And then I was preparing for the show and I watched it again and I laughed again. So enough build up. This is an individual who's doing impressions of celebrities walking on ice because reasons. We have way too much comfort in this country. Chuck Norris doesn't slip on ice.
Dude, that guy is good.
Just devoted a ton of time to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if it's a perishable skill, if he has to practice all the time. Does he have to, like, every winter get reaccustomed to walking around like Jackie Chan?
He might have to move to Ontario, Steve. They have more ice there.
Still can't justify it. Still can't. Always wear shorts whenever the option. There's no way that hell is a hot place. All right, guys. That's going to do it for us. Hope you enjoyed it here on the Saturday Grab Bag edition of the American Radicals podcast. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Tuesday 10:30 Eastern time, as always. Until then, guys, have a great day.
You've been listening to the Voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/AmRad.